I am delighted to be here today. I am extremely honored to have been asked to come back to Illinois, and I can't tell you how much fun it is to look out and see and greet colleagues that I've known for over 40 years, and I promise I won't identify you by name so you don't have to be embarrassed. And I am also delighted to see a lot of people who really met at the end of my tenure at the Math Science Academy. I've been retired now. Some of you who I've never seen for me, because those of us who've known one another for 40-some years eventually are going to learn how to retire. We're not very good at this yet, but we're working on it, and we'll get better at it, I hope. When I made this title up, when Don asked for a title, I thought, well, okay, this sounds good, and I've got a couple of ideas with it. I didn't know that 2 days ago we were going to have lions and tigers and bears loose in Ohio. So, I think it's not too bad. Obviously, it's fashioned from The Wizard of Oz, and it seems appropriate for the yellow brick road of assessment on which we find ourselves. Like Dorothy and her Tin Woodsman, lion, and scarecrow friends, we're holding hands and moving forward with a goal in mind and a lot of hope, but more than a little fear and trepidation. I understand that. I'm in that with you. Also, like this quartet of friends, we gain strength and resolve by taking the path with others who are willing to try their best to accomplish a worthwhile goal. Okay, excuse me. This is sort of the rule of the yellow brick road. I've had my hand in a lot of aspects of the Common Core state mathematics standards, and I continue to work on assessment development for those standards. But I generally feel a lot like Dorothy and hope that today I can enlist you. Now, like it or not, you're the leadership in Illinois mathematics education. Some of you recognize that. Some of you go, oh, no, I'm not. But yeah, you are. Usually, as we skip down the road toward the goal of helping students learn to understand math and be able to do it, these are not new goals, folks. These have been around at least since 1989, which, by the way, is when I got the presidential award, but that's okay. Don's getting old, so he forgets things sometimes. These are not new ideas. NCTM wrote the original standards for content in 1989. And we have had process standards and content standards in place in one form or another since then. The Common Core state standards are different in some ways, and I'll talk about those later on. But it is really trying to call us back to doing what we have always wanted to do. But how do we do this? Well, let me tell you what my goals are for this presentation. Today I want to talk about three areas. I want to talk about the substance of the assessment. The assessment that you're going to have to work with in 2014 and some testing before that is based on the Common Core state standards. Those are pretty well done. They are unique in many ways. And again, we'll talk about this a little bit more later on. But they're fairly well set. You can like them. You can think some of them are dumb. I think some of them are dumb. But they were a momentous kind of stepping stone to a new approach within the United States. And they're what they are. I mean, that's what we're going to be working with for at least the next 10 years. So the substance on which the assessment is built is pretty set. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about the structure of the assessment. Now, the structure of the assessment, two partnerships. The one that Illinois is involved in for the assessment of readiness for college and careers. The right letters in order. And that is, to me, it's kind of like Jell-O. It's pretty well set. I just said to Sue Pippin, I don't think anything is going to change in that will impact the classroom per se. But there is still ongoing discussion. They have published a framework. It has been out for public comment. I hope you looked at it. I hope you know what it is. I hope you made comments on it. There is some discussion. There are going to be 3 through-year and 1 summative assessment. There's some ongoing discussion about exactly how those are going to play out. And yeah, to some extent that affects you, but it's not going to change. The basis of what this is isn't going to change. So it's sort of semi-set, I would say. And then the last part of this talk is going to be about presentation of the assessment. Let me tell you, that's like quicksilver at the moment. There are things that we know about it, and there's one. What I warned him was, fine, but I don't know if we're going to have anything. And the truth of the matter is, in terms of specifics, we don't. But I'll be able to show you where we are, because a week and a half ago I was at a meeting with Dana Center, and so I know right where we are in terms of that, and we'll do the best that we can. The Common Core State Standards had its root way back in February of 2009. At that time, Achieve Incorporated, with many of you who know this, and its American Diploma Project, called together folks from ACT and the College Board, and we all met in Washington with the goal of discovering whether or not there could be common end of high school requirements defined for math and English language arts. So it began then with this conversation, just could we get these big players together? Could it be done in such a way, because if ACT and College weren't on board at all, it probably wasn't going to work. So the goal was to bring this together just to explore it, and let me tell you, those early meetings were really interesting. They were really interesting, because some of these people don't talk to one another very much. By the summer of that year, it had become so evident that there was hope for this, and there was such encouragement from states who finally kind of were realizing that even though education is a state responsibility, kids move. You know, they move to different districts, but they move to different states and different regions of the country, and it's possible that a student who learned multiplication in 4th grade would learn it in 5th, or would move and miss it because they didn't have 4th grade, you know, in that state. So there was a commitment to doing this, and two groups took over the writing of the end of high school standards, and that was the Council for Chief State School Officers and the National Governors Organization. And I worked with that group for most of the fall, and we finalized the end of high school standards that became the beginning of the Common Core State Standards. So in October of 2009, what you know, I'm hoping, how many of you have looked at a copy of the Common Core State Standards? Oh, phew, okay, good. Those of you who haven't, you need to do that, but at least the majority of you have. At that point, we began to write the Common Core State Standards, and I was on the writing team for that. I was no longer the lead writer, because they really wanted people who could devote more time than I was willing to at that point. Plus, I think they had some really, really good people involved in that, and so that began in October of 2009, and by July 2010, the Common Core State Standards were out. I also was involved in writing the appendix for that, but that was just sort of like a reality check, an existence proof for how you might be able to put these standards together in courses. Just a sample, just like, okay, it could be done. It could be done this way. Wasn't ever intended to be a curriculum. Now, I want to pause for just a moment, because July 2010 was really momentous. I hope that some of you at least realize what a big deal it is to have Common Core State Standards. These are not a national curriculum. They are not a figment of the Obama administration. It started in February of 2009. Barack thinking state level. And by agreement with states, we now have something, at least the foundation for making a coherent curriculum across the United States. That has not been done before. This country is grounded, has been grounded from the beginning, with local control of education. And we can't afford to do that anymore. Now, I'm stump speech of some kind. Have the expertise at a local level for everybody to reinvent this. It's a silly waste of time. We need to figure out not how to set out the guidelines. And research that's been done over the last decade, a lot of it at University of Missouri by the Rays, has shown that there was just this hodgepodge of stuff